Good evening, Ben.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Sophie. Good evening, Mr. Tanner.
Good evening.
Good evening, Danielle. Good evening, Michelle.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing well, thank
Good.
you.
Michelle. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening. Sorry I'm late.
No worries. Mariah Moon and Nellie will not be able to join us this evening, so we will be 2 board members light, but we still have a quorum, so we should be good to go. And I think we're just waiting for April. I haven't received any news that she won't be attending, so maybe we'll give her just another moment to join. And Scott as well. Good evening, April.
Hello.
And good evening to our 5 attendees. All right. I believe we're just waiting for Scott. We'll give him one more moment, as again, Mariah and Nellie will not be able to join us this evening. And if we don't hear from another moment, then we'll just go ahead and proceed and let him catch up. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? And April, you might want to keep a look on the panelists to see when Scott joins if I miss it. All right. So good evening. Welcome to the June 1st, 2022 VSWEA board meeting. We'll go through the opening verse and then some introductions. And Dan Franks, if you wouldn't mind reading the closing verse, I've put it on the agenda so I don't forget, since I tend to. So well, if I forget going forward, everyone will know where to look there so you're not surprised. The opening verse. The true aim of education is to awaken real powers of perception and judgment in relation to life and living. For only such an awakening can lead to true freedom. Rudolf Steiner. And with that, we'll kick off our introductions. My name is Kirsten Kabina. I am the board president. I have 2 children at Desert Marigold. And I'll call left from my right to my left. Ben, you're next.
Hi all, Ben Fong, board member. I've got 2 kids at DMS.
Thank you. Dan.
My name is Dan Franks. I'm the board treasurer. I had 2 kids at DMS. Now I have 3 kids at a Steiner school in Melbourne, Australia.
Thank you. April.
April Sauer, board secretary, and I have a daughter at DMS.
Mr. Tanner.
Hi, John Tanner, board member.
Thank you. And Danielle.
Hi, good evening. Danielle Martinez, board member, daughter in 10th grade, and we started in preschool.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go ahead and we have 3 guests joining us this evening. And I'll start it off with Michelle. If you just want to give us a quick introduction.
Hi, thank you for having me. I am Michelle Kratzer, Parent Council Chair.
Thank you. And Sophie.
Thank you for having me. My name is Sophie McCurley, and I have 3 children.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Maurizio.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Maurizio, and I am the proud executive director of Desert Marigold.
Thank you. Okay, and we'll just move right on into your updates. Mr. Maurizio, you're up first.
You bet. Lots of good news this week, in the last 2 weeks since we've met. Obviously, it was the close down of the year, and the big ceremonies that went on, from Rainbow Bridge to a Rose ceremony, an 8th grade promotion, and high school promotion. And I saw so many of the board members there at those events, which was awesome. And the student speakers did a wonderful job. It was well attended. We had great desserts from a parent, Brian O'Connor, who owns his own bakery, and we booked him for the gig, and it went very well. It was a great last week. Some things that have come about in the last couple days, I tried to send you, I hope it went through today, that we did conduct our mold testing on grades 5, 6, 7, 8, and the farmhouse. And I sent you the results. We passed all of those. So there'll be no further money incurred to fix anything because we passed. I sent you guys a copy, and of course, a copy will go in the files up front. And I think our next test will be 2 years from now. You're supposed to do it inside of 3 years, I believe. And so we're happy that that turned out the way it did. The bathroom is underway at the high school. They broke ground Friday, the day after graduation. And so they've been working on that, and it's going very well. We still don't have a permit on the wood shop yet. My gentleman Javier is trying very hard every day. He harasses the city of Phoenix to get that permit so we can start that, because the goal is to have both.
We lost audio on you. We can't hear you. No, I can't hear you.
Now can you hear me? You can hear me now. Sorry.
Yes.
We did have a little bit of bad news. The day before the last day of school, the 5th grade air conditioner went kaput. So we are now investing in a new air conditioner, and here it is literally 30 days before the turnover of the budget. And we're going to have to spend probably $8,600 to $8,900 on a brand new air conditioner. And yet the other side is I'm quite surprised that we made it through the whole year without losing one. But we did lose one, and we'll have to fix that. And the other thing that is a bit of bad news is we're going to have to fix the roofs on 3rd and 4th grade and the high school science room. And I believe that bid has come in at $14,000. I did send you that in writing today. You don't need to approve anything at this meeting, but you will have to approve it before the next meeting or at the next meeting so I can get them started on that. The other thing, about 3 days ago, I believe I sent you the DEI programs. We found 2 that we narrowed it down to, and then from there we chose the one. The one, obviously, that we chose is way less in price than the others. And yet we're happier with the service we're going to get from the one we chose, which is WestEd. WestEd does trainings all over the nation, hundreds of different type of trainings. This is just one category we do. And Dr. Darian and Sarah Bays, before she left, was part of that committee in choosing that, and myself. And so we are prepared to move forward and have that training on this one of the 2 training days for teachers before the first day of school. It will be a long 3-hour training on one morning, and then 2 1.5 to 2 hour trainings after school, one in September, one in October. But we are happy about.
We lost you again.
Anything? I'm moving
Yeah.
around.
We got you now.
I'm sorry. I'm out on the patio tonight where it's quiet, and yet I don't know why I'm not getting good service. Anyway, I did want to update you a little bit that we're happy with our choice and we're moving forward, and we will have something in place. First step is staff. Second step would be students. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Student enrollment, we're up to 308, and now we have 12 packets out, which would bring us to 320 if that miracle comes to fruition. Again, we are budgeting on 300 just to be cautious. And I wish I had more news on the budget for you. I do meet with Monique and Jessica tomorrow morning, but without having a final decision from the state governor, we really are just guessing right now. We have to have that into us. We're operating on a normal increase of 2%, and we are hoping that it is more because we might be able to do more if we get more than 2%. I think that's all I have for now. If I forgot something, I'm sorry. If you want to jog my memory, I'll talk about it. Or if you have any questions, please feel free.
I just wanted to thank you for your report. It was really detailed this time around, and I was grateful to get to know, you wrote up some details on the new staffing, and it was just great to have all those details. So thank you. And lots of good news. I love hearing good news.
Good. I did forget to go over staffing, even though I wrote it to you. We are hired except for the counselor. We have interviewed and have not found the person we want yet, so we will continue interviewing. I'm not desperate yet. We're okay. Our classes are filled, and Dr. Darian is going to start holding parent meetings to meet our new teachers in 1st, 2nd, and 7th, and we're excited about that.
Lots of good news.
Frank, I did have a question. Did we also research the OSNA's DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and the racial equity plan as well?
No, I have no knowledge of a plan from that is state or nationally certified from OSNA. And I talked to Joan about it, and she didn't say anything about it. So we scoured the internet. We went through colleges. We probably got up to 6 companies and narrowed it to these 2. We did put a lot of time into this. It was you know how long ago it was that we even brought this up, that we need to do something. So this took a good 6 weeks easy to find what we think is a good company and someone who has multiple experiences with schools. A lot of the people who do this only do it for businesses or colleges, meaning adults. And it made a big decision for us, a big deal that people had experience in schools. Did we freeze? Are we okay?
No, I think we're just all letting it settle on what you said.
You answered me. You said no.
Okay, sorry.
Any other questions for Frank before we move on? Okay. Great. So now we'll move on to our continuing business and open issues. I'll go ahead and make a motion to move to approve the meeting minutes from the May 18th, 2022 regular board meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
My hand is up. This is Mariah.
Oh, Mariah, I'm sorry. I didn't think you were going to be able to make it. I didn't even notice you had come. Thank you. Great. Any, I think that was unanimous. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And Mariah, do you want to do a quick intro to yourself? I'm sorry that I missed that you'd made it.
I snuck in. Hi, everyone. Mariah Moon, board member, mom of 2 at DMS.
Thank you. Right, do a quick, doesn't look like Scott's been able to join us yet. Okay, great. Our next item is the board survey and executive director questions. I believe we all got those. Thank you, Danielle. And Dan, I believe you're working on those as well. So thank you both very much. And with that, I will go ahead and open it up if anybody had any questions, thoughts, suggestions on the questions for the survey.
Question?
Yes,
I have a
Ms. Marzio.
simple question. I thought it was very thorough, great questions, but some of them seem to be asked over 2 and 3 times. Does it have to be that long? There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, I think that some of the questions were like trying to attack different angles of the same kind of topic and that they could be tightened up. I was going through and editing a bunch of kind of collapsing questions into single questions and just hadn't had time to reach back out with Danielle and go over it yet. But was definitely trying to shorten things up and tighten them up and make things more measurable.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And I know I was giving you feedback on the sheet right before this meeting, so I didn't give you a lot of time to take anything into consideration. I thought it was well put together. I think the questions it's long, but I think it's thoughtful and it comes at it from a lot of different angles. I liked that they're, mostly strongly agree, neither disagree or agree. That'll be great for benchmarking, which I think is important as we kind of look to do this every year, and then also leaving some room for people to leave their personal thoughts. The only couple of things that I had, Dan, which I already shared with you, is I think we should, when referring to Desert Marigold, I think we should stick with either Desert Marigold School or DMS and not kind of flop back and forth between the two. Probably DMS because it's shorter, but that was one of my thoughts. And same goes for the executive director. I think, just saying Mr. Maurizio rather than executive director is just a little bit more warm and just consistent, as I'm assuming everybody knows that Frank is the executive director, but if I was somebody that didn't know, by having some of the questions be Frank and some of the questions be ED, I might think it was a different person. But I mean, again, those are nitpicky things. It wasn't anything of huge substance.
I sent in grammar comments, so you're not the person.
Thank you, April.
Period. This one ends in a comma, so we're on the same page. I did add substantive comments as well, but I just go all out.
I appreciate that, April. Thank you for sending it to me. And Kirsten, I didn't see yours. If you want to copy me on that. Oh yeah, I do a lot on my phone, so definitely we'll go through again for punctuation.
Yeah, sorry, it was on a Google Sheet. Now that I look at it, it's just Dan and I on it. So sorry about that. Any other? I mean, I thought there was a couple too that were a little bit duplicative. Like for instance, and again, they're kind of coming at two different things, and sometimes it's nice to have duplicative questions to kind of, see the subtleties between those two as well. So just one of those examples, if we did want to think about shortening it, one was The DMS board displays having the necessary, diverse perspectives are welcomed and valued amongst DMS board members is one. And the second one is DMS board members treat everyone fairly and with respect, regardless of their differences or background. That felt very similar to me, like we could almost combine it into one, but didn't know if anybody else had any thoughts about it. Again, when I was first coming at it, I was coming at it from a perspective of let's shorten it. But then the more I went through it, I was like, I don't mind that it's long and something that people should invest their times in if it's important. So.
I also, I agree. I also, sorry.
Was one that was about, it's okay. One was about us as board members and the other one was about others outside of our board meetings. So that was my thought process around those two questions.
I also kind of thought that, the reason I didn't add everybody to that person is because I think there's open meeting law issues with collaborating everyone together. So I figured we could kind of like come up with a list of things that we wanted to talk about and then bring that so we don't violate law. Yeah. Another thing I thought we might want to do is flip the board of directors section with the executive director section, because almost every parent will have opinions about the school principal or the executive director, but not all will have opinions about the board. And some people, might even think that the questionnaire is only about the board because there's a lot of board sections if we don't flip them.
Good add.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. Did anyone else have any thoughts or feedback that maybe they haven't already shared that they wanted to discuss in a larger group? Okay, great. I thought that was going to take more time, so good. Perfect. Okay, next up is the 2022-23 developmental proposal. We've asked our guest, Sophie McCurley, to join, and I believe Sophie and Ben are going to present and just open up the discussion.
Yeah, I can start it off. It's the same document that was shared 2 weeks ago. I actually just added a copy to the board meeting documents folder. So has everyone seen that document? Because I'm just going to go through it real quick. So it's in the board documents folder right now. It would be helpful if everyone was looking at it just to make the conversation go easier. Frank, you have not seen it, right? Okay, I'm just going to email it to you right now just so that you have it in front of you. Okay, so hopefully everyone's got a copy of it. This is basically the same document that was shared 2 weeks ago with a few extra details. I just want to walk through it section by section so everyone sort of knows what we're proposing here. So the first section basically outlines 3 different priorities, and these are priorities that were culled together after talking with Michelle and Laura, talking to Frank, and also talking to the LDC. These are not all of the things that were mentioned in those meetings. These were common points of overlap that everyone agreed were important priorities. So the 3 that we landed on were retaining teachers, extending the day by instituting Waldorf programming, specifically a strings program, and then by building things. So those are the 3 priorities. Again, not everything that everyone mentioned was listed there, but I think that those are 3 top priorities for people based upon those conversations. The second section, so right now, like as of now, We currently have pretty sporadic fundraising throughout the year, sort of comes and goes depending upon who can organize what. It's usually for specific purposes, which is to say that funds are restricted in some way, or they're raised for, like animal care or some specific purpose. And from what I understand, most of the fundraising that we do goes to parent council, with the exception of class-specific fundraisers. So what we're proposing to do in the document is to streamline fundraising. The idea is that most of the fundraising that we do would go to a sustaining fund that goes directly to the school. And hopefully it's mostly comprised of unrestricted funds. I think we want to develop some trust in the school and to bring in funds that are not class specific or purpose specific, but really unrestricted, so that when, say, an air conditioner goes out, we have money to pay for it. We've set goals for $225,000 for the sustaining fund and $40,000 for tax credits. And all of that work is built into a fundraising calendar, which is section 3. And the aim there is to have all fundraising efforts centrally coordinated. So right now, fundraising basically happens whenever people want it to happen. So there's a lot of people doing fundraising. I think that parents are really bombarded with a lot of different asks throughout the year. And our thinking is that limiting and really regularizing the asks with both larger goals and larger sums in mind is the best way to bring in money for the school. So there is that element of centralization of the fundraising efforts that I wanted to point to. And then section 4 is just saying that Sophie has graciously agreed to steward this process. This doesn't mean that Sophie will be the sole person doing everything, but Sophie has agreed to sort of make sure that the things that are put on the fundraising calendar get done. And then the final section, section 5, is about grant writing. Mariah and I will have a more regular grant writing process, hopefully, and get some grants coming into the school. So, yeah, I mean, the hope is to really sort of like raise the level of DMS fundraising in general, and to have most of it go to the school in an unrestricted fashion. So that's the proposal. So I guess we can talk about it. Actually, sorry, Sophie, did you want to add something there?
I think you got it all, Ben, but I'm really happy to answer any questions or concerns that anybody has.
That's really great to see that level of thought and effort going into this organization. I also like the emphasis on reducing the cognitive load on parents by regularizing the fundraising so that people can more easily participate. Parents are some of the busiest people I know, and reducing that cognitive load is extremely beneficial, and it definitely helps out with participation.
I think for me, I like this too. I like the structure of it. I like to, like the regularization of it. I think my only question around it would be around parent council, as I know that they've been a huge part of the DMS community since I'm going to say the beginning of time, because I don't actually know when it started. And they do a lot of the fundraising. And I think what I like about it, and I think it's part of an important factor of the community, is just that the community gets to be part of the fundraising and then and then do the asking. So it's a little bit more, it leaves that spontaneity in it. Like Michelle didn't one year, parent council give like new chairs to the science room and the soccer goals and the water tower, the teacher training in the summer. I'm trying to think of all that. It seems like there's always 1,000 things that they do, which I think is a big part of the community. So I'm wondering how we might be able to. It just felt like some of that might be, how do we retain some of that?
So this is a contradiction, I guess, that we're running across. And, Michelle, I'd love to sort of like hear your input on this. So on the one hand, we think it's important, as Dan, you just said, excuse me, to reduce the cognitive load on parents so that the asks are regular. I think that part of this process is also, up front at the very beginning of the school year, welcoming parents with packets that make it very clear how much we need to make up in order to provide a well-rounded Waldorf education. Right now on our website, I think it says something like $2,100 per student is the gap. And it's, something around there, which is what we're hoping to raise, a little bit less actually. But I think making that clear from the get-go will sort of like help us and just sort of reminding parents throughout the year. So that's one component of it. The other component is, we do want there to be room for spontaneity, as you say, Kirsten, and for parent council to exercise its autonomy. There is a contradiction between those things, right? If we're trying to plan out things on a regular basis throughout the year, just sort of throwing in spontaneous events as they happen for different purposes sort of upsets the flow that we'd hope to create. And it does add to the number of asks throughout the year. I'm hoping that we can find some kind of balance there. I mean, from what I understand, again, right now, there's not really any fundraising that goes just directly to the school. And that's something we're hoping to really reverse, and we're hoping that the board supports. From what I understand, I don't know everything here, but from what I understand, most of the fundraising events go to parent council. And then there are also class-specific fundraisers, but there's nothing like a sustaining fund right now.
Right.
And that's the key thing. And our hope, and, I'm just sort of talking through the different contradictions here. The hope is to really focus on that and to have other things sort of happening around it, like orbiting it. But the hope is to really focus on that and to make it clear to parents from the get-go that this is what we are hoping for from this year. Everything else is kind of gravy. But yeah, I just wanted to point to that as a contradiction in the proposal.
Does the proposal talk about who has the voices in how the sustaining fund is allocated, like how the money is spent? Because if parent council had involvement in had a say in how the money was spent, along with the executive, along with maybe the faculty, I'm just wondering if there's any sort of, if that could be kind of like the middle ground to advocating for spend in certain that comes out of the fund for specific things, but at the same time having it a more general fund as well, which is kind of a more mature, organizationally mature way to handle these types of fundraising projects.
So maybe this needs clarifying, but we're not asking that parent council give their funds that they've earned to the sustaining fund. Parent council still has control over, parent council plans and hosts Winter Fair every year, and that's their big fundraiser of the year. I know that in the past we've done other small things here and there, but if we're trying to earn, like Ben is, saying, what we're proposing here is earning hundreds of thousands of dollars, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for the school. That's ideally would go into a general fund that would be allocated at the school's discretion. So it's parent council's funds are still kept separate. They're able to use that to host their socials and events, teacher training, teacher appreciation throughout the year. It's still separate.
Thank you for clarifying that. Regarding that $2,000 a month or a year per kid for Waldorf, additional money, that is actually the schools here that are publicly funded Steiner. If you opt into the Steiner stream, that's about what you pay. And they subsidize it based on income levels, but you have to pay that on top of to have your kid in the schools here to give the Steiner or Waldorf experience for your children, because it does cost more to run a school that way than just a normal public school. I just thought people would find it interesting for context that teachers are paid around the same here. the amount of money per student they get is around the same. And then they ask parents to chip in about $2,000 to give them a Waldorf education.
That's really what we're doing here. And the ask when we were coming up with these goal numbers, it was $1,500 per student. So if we have an enrollment at 306 and if everybody participated 100%, that'd be roughly $450,000. So our goal is half of that. But it's nice to hear that that's what other schools are doing too.
This is Mariah. I just wanted to give a comment. Sorry, I'm in a hotel, so you guys don't want to see my hotel room. Anyway, I was just, Ben, I almost disagree with your language of contradiction, but I'll speak at least from my personal feelings. I feel like this is an addition to what already exists. It doesn't take away from all the momentum that I enjoy, that things that happen like, winter fair and other activities throughout the year. But this is, if we go back to the three main pillars, teacher retention, Waldorf programming, those are very different things from parent council fundraising, at least to my knowledge, that I really want the school to be more transparent about that gap. And for me to be given more opportunities to give to the holistic gap of the school. So I see it as an addition, not as a contradiction. I want to be able to champion my kids' fancy crayons from Germany and being able to do winter fair and do all the other activities that happen already.
Just quickly to clarify, by contradiction, I just meant that some of the spontaneity that Kirsten, you spoke to before, I think we are hoping not to completely get rid of that, but to at least tame it through a centralized fundraising calendar so that we know what the asks are going to be and that they're not all clumped together and that they can be spread out through the year so that we can have, again, a sort of more regular ask process for parents. I had one other comment, but it completely slipped my brain.
I have a question about just maybe Michelle, you can clarify this, but what have been in the past? Just winter fair is coming to me for big fundraising. I know we do, there are class specific events, bake sales and the like, but and then we do the Tuft & Needle mattress announcement went out today. I know that's ending, unfortunately, but outside of, if I'm just thinking on the last couple of years of what I can remember off the top of my head, we do Parent Council hosts the winter fair. And then last year there were some animal care fundraisers. I believe those were Parent Council hosted. I'm not sure about the brunch. Oh, no. But I guess maybe you can just clarify what outside of really winter fair, the Parent Council does for fundraisers throughout the year.
Yes, winter fair tends to be a big one for us. But we also used to do the spring brunch, which was, we moved it into the animal care one this year. Auctions are normally done at that time. We also used to switch years between the staff planning a gala and us doing a brunch. So it would be every other year in the spring. There's our monthly restaurant fundraisers. There's we used to do Skateland. Most of our things are both community building and fundraisers. They're things that people want to attend and have fun at. So even winter fair, we say it all the time. This isn't just about the money. This is about the kids and what they're experiencing and that kind of thing. So it's the experience. But the spring brunch and winter fair, when we did the auction with it, and we planned it a year in advance, they would be pretty equal in the amount of what we brought in. So that's what I don't know.
BC, we always had it. Well,
Sorry, my internet is frozen. I'm sorry, Michelle. I missed that last little bit. I think I got the gist of it, though. My internet's kind of going in and out. Apologies. Yeah, and I don't think that I think that we can absolutely roll the Skateland fundraisers and the restaurant fundraisers into the calendar. I don't think those should go away. I think community.
My biggest issue with this, my biggest one, is that it says on there that any fundraiser would have to be board approved. That's overstepping boundaries of parent council. That is.
So by board approved, like we're going over this document now, and the fund, or at least a tentative fundraising calendar is on there. And I think that that just means that we're going to talk about it at board meetings and just make sure that we're on the same page. Like, again, not trying to sort of like tamp down things as much as like regularize them. And right now, things just sort of happen, and there's the board is not, advised of when they happen or for what purpose. And I think that results in the sort of cognitive overload that Dan mentioned earlier, and that we're trying to reduce. And so by that, it's just that, that we decide on a fundraising calendar together. This seems like the most obvious body to do that work. So I guess that's the language. It's pre-approved by the board, which is to say that we decide on the fundraising calendar together, this body. But it's not meant to sort of like, tamp down efforts in that direction.
So would it sound better to say agreed upon collaboratively?
I mean, that's what we're doing in the board,
Michelle, is that better language? You're
muted. Yeah, or maybe rather than being pre-approved, I think that language is a little harsh, but maybe we can put like a date around it. Like this is the time that we come up with the fundraising calendar in tandem with, with parent council, us being, the pillars and remembering that, we do have, the different pillars to consider and the community. I just want to make sure that we don't, that we're not off-putting to parent council. Michelle, I know that as a board, we're certainly not trying to overstep in any way. We're just trying to be effective and find ways to all move forward. So I think this is great discussion, and we can definitely find good common ground to where we're all working in the same direction. Mariah, did you? Oh, go ahead, Michelle. Sorry.
My other thing is that the animals are not included in this. I think you all know how near and dear. So
Mariah, it looks like you have your hand up also.
I wanted to make sure Michelle was done. I wanted to see if Frank had any thoughts.
Thank you, Mariah, for calling on me. I appreciate it. Look, I've been working very well with both entities on these new fundraising ideas. And yet it's clear that without intention, one side's feelings are getting hurt because they feel like they're being pushed out. And I know that's not the intention because I have met with Ben and Mariah and Sophie, but I've also met with Michelle and Laura. And that's just how they feel. And unless we get together, whether it's Ben, me, Michelle, Kirsten, me, Michelle, and talk this through so that she feels comfortable that all the things they've done for all these years aren't lessened. I know the beginning conversations with Ben and Mariah and Sophie were about big fundraising, a multi-purpose room, tearing down the farmhouse and building 4 classrooms. Clearly, that's not something that Parent Council has been working on. They do smaller things to get us through a year and then start over again with those things that we want and fundraise again for them. Clearly, things like the teacher training, the teacher appreciation, the barbecues for the kids. These are all things I see Michelle and Laura on top of to make the environment the fun and collaborative place that it is. And they are really good things. I've been wowed by them. And most of you are there. I see you. And so I'd really like a delineation of this group does this and this group does this, so there isn't any feeling of toes being stepped on. The other thing I got to address is the thing that Michelle just brought up about the animals. Michelle has heard from me many times, even though I'm new. Michelle, I cannot put a dime out from state funds for the animals. I rely heavily on you to utilize volunteers, fundraising for food, fixing something that breaks in the barn, bringing out the veterinary services that we have to pay for. Those guys don't donate that. We pay big time for that. And so she has been trying very hard to make sure our animals stay a big piece of who we are. I know it isn't the focus, but I will tell you, we get lots of kids enroll on those tours because they see that environment. It is a big deal. I wish classes would do a little bit more, and some did this year now that we were out of COVID, and there's hope that we'll do more next year. But I don't want you guys to think it's just okay to stop with the animals. We certainly, it is not the Waldorf way to let animals just die. We all know that. So we're going to take care of our animals, and Michelle and Laura know the school cannot give a dime of public funds from that. That means it has to be fundraised for, and the parent group is the right group to do it. I suppose you could ask kids to do that, but I'm not sure that's the right thing to put our kids to work on. I think what the parents are doing right now is the right thing, and it's been impressive to me as I'm new and I see all the cogs in the wheel that make that work. It's a good thing. So I sure hope we aren't trying to stamp out fundraising that help the animals. That's all.
Frank, if I can comment on that, I'm struggling a little bit with us pulling into the emotions. I'd rather us pull out. And the recommendation proposal isn't a suggestion to take away animal care. I think we need to continue to look at the addition to the support. Personally, this is my way to give back. I adore I love parent council. I cannot do, and I wish I could be the boots on the ground of that school. This is an addition to what a group of people and collectively the school can do. It doesn't take away. And I think we have to be really cautious of the emotion of assumptions of what we're saying or what we're not saying. We've said nothing about animal care, but that doesn't mean that it's taken away from animal care. This is just an addition to animal care. And I would love to champion, if there was a need to do additional fundraising, yeah, we can do that. But I think we're pulling into assumptions of emotions instead of strategy. I myself have also reached out to Michelle and others of really wanting to sit down and break bread to figure out where the emotions are and how we can collaborate together. But as far as the strategy within the board meeting, this isn't a takeaway moment. This isn't a suggestion of things that are going to have, happen with parent council or happen with the school. It's just an addition to things that are already happening.
This is a really common thing to have a struggle with in an organization that is maturing. A lot of times is that the people that have been doing it all along worry that they're going to be pushed out or deprioritized when this new group comes in and is doing all this new stuff, and they're like, oh, the numbers are bigger and they're trying to have more reach and they're going to push us out. And what I always try to help people understand is that this other group is like what Mariah was saying, is it's additive. And what we're actually trying to do is establish like parent council is like the biggest stakeholder, the biggest group we're interested in aligning with to help them even do their work better, to help the timings line up better, to kind of collaboratively. It's basically where you get to exploit efficiencies that different groups are kind of doing the same thing, and you can line up a calendar, and there's a lot of mind thought that goes into like timing and communication, and when you can share that between two groups that are working on kind of a similar problem, but not necessarily the same problem. It's like the Venn diagram of collaboration, where not everything that grant writing and the other pillars want to do is the same as everything parent council wants to do, and vice versa. But there is a lot of crossover, and if we can align, it'll benefit both. It'll benefit all the pillars. So I just wanted to clarify that as well. But we do need to be intentional about managing those relationships and being close and communicative and aligning tightly and letting everyone know their work is important and needs to be prioritized equal to the other work.
And thank you, Dan, for that. I don't know that that's a summary of Michelle's emotions or thoughts or ideas, but it is a valid point. And I wanted to emphasize that we're more successful when we work together. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And even though those lines cross, I don't think there should be a division. I think there should be equal support from all pillars so that we are successful as a community and move in the right direction.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I just want to reiterate again that there's no intention to take anything away from anybody. It's just to open doors to true collaboration so that we can achieve, we want to raise a lot of money, a substantial amount of money, and we're hoping to present this ask to our community that, frankly, we're entering our 9th year, and I don't think I've ever been asked for more than the $250 materials fee. So it's going to take a massive collaborative effort, and that's what we're hoping to do. As far as the animals go, no one's pushing the animals out. In my discussions, I haven't been able to, there hasn't been, the animal responsibility hasn't been claimed by any one group, and so it is up in the air. I believe at our initial meeting with Ben, Laura, Michelle, and myself, we proposed parent council take over animal care. And I don't think there was an interest in that. But to my mind, like, what if we had, what if parent council took over animal care and then they didn't have to worry about any of the funding requests that are coming from staff, because the sustaining fund would likely be able to cover those requests. So like to Dan's point, we would be supporting and bolstering everybody's goals and making sure that everybody's needs are met. No one is suggesting that the animals go away or die. I know that the children love the animals, and we have a group at the school who's invested in them. It's just, maybe this is where ownership of the animals is taken so that we can move forward. Because I mean, this plan is, if you look at our number one priority is teacher retention. I hate to see this get hung up, or the idea that we can pay our teachers a little bit more, our staff more, because the animals haven't been, totally nailed down yet.
I think the animals, for me, it's not that I think they're going away. It's that animal care has been responsible for 2 years for their everything, every dollar. And we did a fundraiser for them that will carry us for the year, but there's not a plan to fundraise for them more in this plan. I'm not disagreeing that teachers need to be paid more. They absolutely do. I'm just saying that we need to think of the living beings on that property who are, they're there 24/7, 365. So,
Michelle, I get your point about the priorities of that, the animal care is not specifically being in there. I think, at least for me, of what I would commit to, of at least looking for grants that would support animal farm care. We ran up against one like 5 seconds before it was due. I think if we have a plan and we can spend more time, I would love to find foundation grants. I think the one that we wrote for, which it wasn't my best job, was like $3,000. So I would be more than willing to be very inclusive as far as the grant opportunities and not just specific to the priority areas. So I get that point.
So just to briefly return to a characterization like made earlier about like the new coming in and pushing out the old, and that's how it feels. I mean, I understand that's how it's being portrayed, but Danielle, to your point, right now we're not working together. We have this body has basically no say over any fundraising efforts. And I think what this document is proposing is that we do work together collaboratively to decide a fundraising calendar together. In that sense, Frank, to your point, I mean, it is an imposition in so much as it's like we do have to work together, right? Like it's not just like parent council deciding when fundraisers happen, it's us deciding together. The pre-approved at the board part was just to say, let's decide them at these meetings. Since Michelle, you come to these meetings, that's sort of why it was in there. It's just to say, hey, let's like work out a fundraising calendar in this space. If we want to change it, that's fine. But I just want to point out that the whole point of this is to introduce collaboration where right now there really isn't. And there's no money coming to, from what I understand, to the school in general in an unrestricted way. Just two other things, like one, there's been a lot of thinking recently about holding purpose-specific fundraisers, which is to say that parents tend to give if they know exactly where their money is going. I think that I understand why that's the case. My sense is that we should push against that, that we should encourage a trust in the school as a whole, and that when parents give donations, they should be to the school in general, so that to support the school's mission. I understand that some parents might not like that, but again, given the size of the ask that we're going to be making at the beginning of the year, I would hope that we can all begin to rebuild some trust in the administration as a whole to use those funds responsibly. And I guess the last thing I'll say is just that if this body is going to be if this body is going to deliberate about animal care, I would like to know what, maybe not at this meeting because it's not agendized, but at some meeting to discuss what are the expenses for the animals, for what animals, because we have a lot of animals at the school, and it just, if we're going to discuss it at these meetings, it'd be nice to sort of see that breakdown.
Ben, I'd like to add that it's not about pushing back. We can always run simultaneously asks, and we haven't done a sustaining fund in quite a while, but we've always been able, but not always, in the past when we've run them, we have been successful for that goal that we've raised, but we certainly are overdue for pushing that out. I didn't find it worthwhile to do during COVID. I tried to do one virtual, and it just wasn't as successful when we didn't have the whole pool of the community. But certainly want to, now that we're back in action, we're back in person, to roll that out. But I don't want to say that we're pushing back, because we certainly want, again, the larger raise, but we also are going to be looking for outside pockets. We're not going to constantly stress or bombard our current community members, because again, for those bigger asks, we do need to reach outside. But I wouldn't say it's pushback at all.
I'd like to add just to the comment of constantly bombarding the community. That's not at all the intention of the plan. I didn't include specific dates on the calendar just because it would probably look really terrible with the formatting and be a little bit confusing. But in the updated document that was sent to you, there is a breakdown, and that's of the different drives that we would be holding for both the tax credits and the sustaining fund. And to Ben's point earlier of regularizing these asks, it wouldn't be the whole idea of collaborating and having a calendar where we collaborate is so that we aren't bombarding. Everything should be planned out so that it's, measurable and consistent, and we aren't giving our community fundraising fatigue through too many asks. But we have to, if we want to raise these large sums, it has to be an ongoing effort, a monthly effort. We can't niche it down to 2 or 3 events a year and kind of just hope for the best. So I just wanted to clarify that it's the last thing we want to do is bombard anybody. And that's where this collaboration of having this calendar where everything can be evenly spaced and distributed through the year to avoid that. Can I come back to animal care for a minute? I'm wondering, is there a reason that Parent Council can't fund animal care? As I mentioned before, can we not, if we're not funding those requests from staff or teachers, why can't Parent Council fund the animals?
Is an animal care run by Animal Care?
Is animal care like its own? Is there an official?
Parent Council is not. Although I've been the animal care coordinator longer than I've actually been in Parent Council leadership. They're 2 separate things, and I would like to keep them 2 separate things. It's the bylaws of Parent Council and things like that are separate. if all of the money goes towards animal care, it's no longer parent council. It's just animal care.
Can we not create, like, we fund Hope and Health through parent council? Can it not become, I mean, I guess that kind of goes back to Ben's question of how much do the animals cost? Is it really going to eat up the entire parent council budget for the entire year? Because if we are eliminating the asks from staff, because most of those asks for parent council come from staff. If we were eliminating those asks from parent council, wouldn't that free up, I mean, several $1,000s in funding? I guess, yeah, it would just be helpful to know how much the animals do cost, because if you're not having those asks, then perhaps it could become like a Hope and Health committee where the animals are just, the animal care committee puts in the request to parent council each year, and it's funded that way.
We have to guarantee that the animals have the food, where Hope and Health, if we don't have the full funds for it, we'll figure out a different way. We don't have the full funds for it. But if we don't have the full funds for animal care, it falls back on those volunteers who are already paying hundreds of dollars. And then on top of that, paying into the sustainable fund and everything. So it's those few animal people who pay the bills, unless we do a fundraiser.
Michelle, would you be willing to, not at this meeting, kind of share, or even with admin, how much, or at least with the board, how much it costs? I'm definitely not a proponent of forcing a line item onto a group that it sounds like you don't want it, which I think there needs to be a line of taking that, if they don't want to house that. But if we're looking at $5,000 to $10,000, are you suggesting that the school taxes it on to the yearly priorities?
I mean,
I guess my point is, if we're looking at $10,000, I'm not sure what would be the big hiccup if we just tax that on to the overall plan. If we're hearing that parent council doesn't want it, I don't think we should force it.
What I would like, as you know, we're talking about collaboration and that type of thing. I would like to have a separate meeting out of this. Can I ask that this be tabled, and then we talk about this another time, as you know, the Ben, Sophie, I, and maybe Frank also in there, and probably Laura. And because it's not just the animals, it's the way we're feeling about having to get board approval for every fundraiser that we do. It doesn't feel like collaboration at this moment.
I just want to add one thing, which is that, to the earlier discussion about animal care, if we want to have a spring fundraiser for animal care, we can still have a spring fundraiser for animal care, right? Like, the point of this proposal is not to say that these things can't happen. The point of the proposal is to say that we should decide these things together ahead of time so that they're spaced out throughout the year on a regularized basis. That's what the proposal is doing. Michelle, I take your point. Like, that means like coming to the board and working out a schedule. I mean, I think that's kind of the sticking point that we're dealing with right now. There's other sort of fringe things going on, but I think the sticking point is like whether or not you all want to come to the board and have the board and parent council work together to figure out a fundraising calendar for the year so that, again, these things are regularized throughout the year. If that's just a no, parent council doesn't want to do that, then, that's the opposite of collaboration, but then we'll be, back to sort of square one. But from my perspective, that's the sort of sticking point that like all we're asking is that we work out a calendar for the year that we can all agree upon.
I'd like to add, Bennett, just maybe a few little wordsmithing that it doesn't have to say that fundraising efforts will be focused on this. Parent council is going to be doing this. And it just sounds limiting. It sounds like we're micromanaging parent council. And, you mentioned it all the time, work together. So why can't we just wordsmith it to, instead of approved, we work together on a calendar?
Michelle, is that something that feels better if we put, I know that you guys have your own calendar. If we can put like that calendar together, all kind of on one document and then out on the school calendar. You guys obviously choose the fundraisers that you want to focus on, but that we can get them all so that we're not maybe doing, I'm just looking at this like January, there's two things, or there's two things in September, so that we're not doing like 4 things in September and then adjusting the wording so that it doesn't feel so limited. Would that help? Or, I mean, I guess what would help so that we can kind of get on the same page and make sure everyone feels included and that we're collaborating. I mean, do you just need that more time to put that together? I don't know if you have your calendar together yet for the next year or not. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there as some ideas.
We do have the majority of our calendar together. It was turned into the office. There are some fundraisers that have been, they take a year to sometimes put together. So we have been working on some of those already. I think a difference in the wording might help, yes, but I also think having this discussion face to face without, the whole public having to go through this also, and just having a heart-to-heart.
Well, that seems reasonable. And you'd mentioned, I think, Ben, Mariah, Sophie, Frank. Does that seem like a good group to maybe reconvene, kind of hash this out a bit, and then move forward from there? Does that work for everyone?
I guess my question is just what are we,
I think you might have froze, Sophie. Can you hear us? Oh, you froze for a moment.
Sorry.
We didn't get you.
I'm sitting right next to my router. It still doesn't want to help me. I guess just my concern, we're already in summer. We have been discussing this for several weeks with different bodies. I'm just not sure. I mean, there's more to talk about, but, we've presented these changes that we can make so that we can work collaboratively. I guess I'm just wondering really what more needs to be changed, I guess. I just hate to lose time on, we've got these lofty goals, and just I'm really passionate about getting our teachers raises and getting this money, this messaging out that our school does need outside funding to be successful in a holistic Waldorf way. Yeah, I think I'm just worried about losing more time. It would be amazing if we could work.
I don't know why you could.
Sorry, it would be.
If I may, Michelle and I just saw the document Michelle got it last night. I got it 20 minutes ago. And so both of us did not know there was going to be a limit, or what seems like a limit, on parent council's fundraising. I'm hearing you say, Ben, I heard you say it twice. You're not saying limit it. You're saying put it on a calendar so we can space fundraising out so parents aren't hit 4 times. I get that. But the fact that we're just seeing this and need some time to digest it and ask some more questions, I don't want to waste time either, Sophia, but one more meeting isn't going to hurt before we make a decision. And that buys us 2 weeks for us to meet and sit down and make things crystal clear, to hash them out, to not leave parent council feeling the way they are right now. Again, I know I've sat with you, Mariah and Ben, and that was not the intent, but it is how it's how they feel right now. And so I think we need to take some time to get parent council through this, because it's just not, even this meeting is not making it better for Michelle right now. I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I can see how emotional she is. I don't think this is helping. I think we need to sit down at a breakfast table somewhere, or at my office, or out on a picnic bench in the courtyard, but we need to talk more.
Frank, I agree. I just think we can do both at the same time. Michelle, I adore you. I care for you. I would love to sit and chat and talk about the collaboration, feelings, emotions, and how we can synergize. I don't know if that needs to pause momentum of Sophie starting momentum forward, because these are very different things. And I would hate to really balance the opportunity of just going forth to figure out how we can fundraise for our school more, because we're trying to make sure.
Why couldn't she could? Oh, excuse me.
I'm willing, and I've said this over and over again, I'm willing to sit with whoever. I don't think that should ever stagnate momentum of fundraising and getting dollars in the door. I think you can do both at the same time. And if there are some very strategic issues, I think that those strategic issues or concerns should be brought into conversations like in a board meeting. Outside of that, I think we need to continue to have really bold, transparent, emotional, whatever communication. But in this conversation, we should be talking about, are there any barriers to both of these entities being able to fundraise for the school? If there's not any issues, I'm not sure why we can't do both at the same time. And yes, I see, Michelle, I see the emotion, I see the frustration, but I'm now getting hooked up on emotion as well of, yes, there are emotions, but that should never be in the way of fundraising. And unless there's these big, huge concerns, again, we need to hear about it then in this board meeting of the concerns.
I am so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. But why couldn't she continue to do legwork and start the fundraising efforts before this is approved or voted on or what have you? Why couldn't she already?
Yeah, I think if we can
I
get
don't see
the
that as-
allowance to continue to work, and the communication and the relationships can continue to work as well.
So I guess I'd like to propose something in in the direction of not having this conversation go on for a long time. Let me think about this. So I think, Danielle, to your point, I think the reason that we're wanting to vote on something tonight is because it's not clear that like we can move in this direction. Like, frustrations I think are on all sides right now, and it's not totally clear to me from the last couple months that we can move forward with this and have it make sense, because there's just at every turn it seems like there's some sort of like roadblock to doing what I think is sort of a sensible thing to do for the school. So that part is not clear to me, and I guess that's why I don't feel. But that's why we're discussing a proposal, because we want just the board's approval to sort of move forward with it. I think that I'm, Frank, Michelle, like I'm very sensitive to the fact that you all have just sort of seen this document. Frank, you just now, and Michelle, you yesterday. And I would love to sit down and sort of like talk about it. My sense, though, is that all of the things that we are concerned about with the proposal have to do with Section 3, which is the fundraising calendar. So I guess what I would propose is that we vote now on everything except Section 3, and then leave that for a later discussion. I actually won't be at the next board meeting. I'm going to be away, and so I'm not going to be there for the next board meeting. I would like to see the basics, which is like the sort of like priorities and just the basic idea of a sustaining fund that Sophie is empowered to steward. I would like to see that part at least passed, and then like the sort of specifics of the collaboration and like working out a fundraising calendar, we can hash that out face to face and sort of figure out what that means. But I think I would like to vote on the proposal exempting sort of Section 3 of it.
Am I missing something? Why does it even need to be voted on? Why aren't you able to move forward with fundraising efforts? So that's one of our objectives.
I think if there's ever uncertainty in whether we vote or not, we usually end up voting. That's the safest thing.
Yeah. I think it's the unification of it. It's board led, so we want to make sure that we're all on the same page together as a board. And you're right, Mariah, kind of lending to that. If we're not quite sure, let's just vote to make sure that we're unified and moving forward in the same direction. So
thank you. I just want to repeat it. For me, it seems like just some wordsmithing. It feels like we're micromanaging PC to eliminate approved and the focus on limited to, just making some wordsmithing on working together. And I think we could agree to move on.
So the motion on the floor is to vote on the proposal exempting Section 3 of it.
okay, so Ben, that was a formal motion. Sorry, I was kind of engrossed in listening. I kind of didn't realize it's a formal motion.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was a formal motion. And
Okay.
Section 3, just to sort of be clear, is the section devoted to the fundraising calendar. That's the part that says, the pre-approved by the board of directors. That's the part that sort of stipulates like different domains. So it's exempting all of that. It's just voting on the priorities, the sustaining fund, goals and purposes, and then the stewardship and grants section. So 1, 2, 4, and 5 of the proposal.
Okay, let's vote. All those in favor?
We need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll
Second.
second.
Well, April, thank you. Always keeping me on the straight and narrow. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed? Okay. Any abstaining? I don't think I saw anyone abstaining. Okay. Motion passes with exception to
Did we
section
skip
3.
discussion?
did I skip discussion? Sorry, we had so much of it. Let's just start over since I just messed that up, botched it so bad.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, just erase that.
Okay. Ben Fong moved to approve the proposal exempting section 3, which is the fundraising calendar. And I second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
It would be nice that we can add verbiage in that we're not excluding animal care fundraising because it is very specific. I wouldn't want to leave that out because we didn't include it. That's, I think, the only other thing for section 1 and 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Any other discussion on maybe adding a fundraising priorities number 4 for animal care?
If I could repeat, not including animal care, but making sure we're not excluding fundraising towards animal care.
I see.
I think that distinction is
We
specific.
can, yeah, just to be clear, like when Sophie and I had conversations with Frank, LDC, Michelle, and Laura, there were a lot of other things mentioned, and this wasn't meant to be a comprehensive list, nor was it meant to be an exclusionary list. So I think adding a line in section 1 to say this is not meant to exclude funding other things that the LDC has recommended, that Frank has recommended, just that these are priorities that came out of those conversations.
That sounds great, Ben.
Good. Okay, all those in favor? All right. Opposed? Any abstaining?
Mariah, you're still a yes.
Sorry, I was trying the emoji hand, but it didn't work.
Okay. I saw it, but I wasn't sure if it was for something else. I got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, great. So next up on our agenda is the PC Fund update. All things PC. If you'll recall, last meeting, it was brought up that Parent Council would like a little bit more autonomy as far as they're kind of tied to us for their funds. Getting reporting from us has been challenging as far as, being able to read the reports and just wanting a little bit more autonomy. So I know that, and Frank, please correct me if I speak out of term, but I believe you sat down with the accountants, with Michelle, with Laura, and decided that maybe the best go forward strategy would be for Parent Council to become its own legal entity and have all of its own finance account, all its own fundraising, spending, and obviously still, associate with the school and all those things, but just be able to give them a little bit more autonomy so they're not stuck to us and we're not stuck to them as far as, having to provide accounting reports and things like that.
That is correct, Kirsten. I sat with Monique and Jessica, and they support the separation of funds in which Parent Council would do like schools around the valley do and run their own booster club parent council. They would be responsible to going to a bank of their choice and set up accounts and have more than one signer on a check so that there's less of a chance of something bad happening. But talking to Michelle and Laura, they would really like to make that move. Summer is the best time to do that because this will take time to get all of that in order. And so, yes, the 4 people I talked to, the leaders of the 2 entities, say, let's let this happen.
Great. So that's good progress. All right, on to new business. Frank, thank you. You already mentioned that usually we would be looking at the budget at this first board meeting in June, given that the governor has pushed back when he is going to release budget numbers. Frank, is it Thursday? Tomorrow?
I think it's Friday.
Okay.
Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
I keep checking the papers to see if something in the back channels have happened, and I haven't seen anything. So,
Okay. So we will, when we get the budget, we'll be able to take a look. I know that kind of changes a couple of things on the way it normally flows. I think, and April, keep me honest too. I think generally at the second board meeting in June is when we ask questions or vote on the budget, as it is due to, needs to be uploaded by July 5th.
Yes, it's July 5th is the first one. It's like the draft budget. And then on the 15th is when the finalized one has to go up.
Okay, so we still have a little bit of time where we haven't crunched ourselves into
Yes.
another June meeting. Okay, good. Great. All right. And then the final new business agenda item is the DEI proposal that Frank provided us with. It is, let me see here. I've got it up on one of my many, many tabs. So we need to approve that since it is over the $5,000. And I thought I had it up somewhere. Oh, let me just pull it back up here. Okay. So I will go ahead and move that we approve the DEI training sessions through West Ed that Frank gave us. And it was for, no, I'm not seeing it on there. Was it on your board report, Frank? Sorry, the dollar amount.
It was I sent you the actual, I want to say it's $8,300, $8,500.
83.
And so you all know, we found a grant for this, so it's not coming out of our M&O.
Great. Mr. Tanner.
The figure is 8353.
Thank you. I just could not find that.
It's under option 3. They gave us 3 options on this. That's why. 8353. 8353. Okay. Would you like me to read that again?
Thank you. April, what did I do without you?
Kirsten Covina moved to approve the DEI training sessions through West Ed that Frank Marizio gave the board for $8,353. And I'll go ahead and second that.
Thank you, April. Any discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed? And abstaining? Okay. Motion passes. All right. So there were no pre-proposed motions that they're given, so we'll move past that section. Our next board meeting is on June 15th at 6:30. As always, feel free to send me your agenda items at any time. You don't have to wait until kind of the day before when I ask if there's anything. And that concludes the board meeting. So I will go ahead and move that we adjourn our June 1st, 2022 board meeting.
Second.
Do I do the verse before or after?
I believe it's after.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous. Any opposed? No? Okay. Motion passes. And Dan, if you'd read us the closing verse, that'd be wonderful.
I'm happy to. The most important tasks for humankind today and in the future is that we should learn to live together and understand one another. If this human fellowship is not achieved, all talk of development is empty. Rudolph Steiner.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone. It's particularly moving first this evening. And thank you all for your participation efforts. And we'll see you soon. Good night.